Hi. What up, everybody? Happy New Year. It's good to see you. Oh my gosh, we're back at it. Who went on vacation? Who left the state? Nice. Good for you. Got to get the heck. Who left the cold? Praise Jesus. Right? I left the cold. I was like, I'm out. I'm taking a vacation from the cold. It's 2023. I am very refreshed. I have a tan. I don't know if you know this. I did a 23andMe years ago, and I have Nigerian in my DNA. I know that doesn't surprise most of you, but my athletic side, you know what I'm saying? But when I get in the sun, the Nigerian just comes out. It's just so quick, you know. I get dark fast, and so I had a great time. Our family went to the DR, and we've actually never done something like that around this time. We've been on trips before, but it was so good to just kind of get away, reset, be with the family, have some kind of recentering time with our family where we just got to enjoy each other, ate some rice, ate some beans, hola, hola, hola. My Spanish is so bad. Plantains is a thing that I really love, though. I found that out. Yes. We got any people that speak Spanish fluently? A few of okay, good. I need to get to know you better. I felt really out of my element in the DR. I was like, I didn't know if I was getting cursed out, praised, encouraged, rebuked, corrected. I just never knew what was going on. I felt like every time they talked to me in English, it was so sweet and nice. But when the Dominicans would turn around and then talk to each other, I felt like they were always yelling at each other. Is that a thing? I don't know. All right, whatever. So all right, so we're going to be in Luke chapter 10 today, and at the end of every year, I try to spend some focused time really processing where Jesus wants us to head in the new year. And at the end of 2022, kind of where we were going to go seemed so clear, really quickly too. Believe that Jesus wants us to walk into the new year with a new pace. So in 2023, what you're gonna feel here at the church, as hopefully this time is really focused on discipling us and pressing into the Lord, hearing from Him, being led and directed by Him. Really believe that heading specifically into the new year and probably all of the new year, as I've already kind of worked out a lot of what the new year is going to look like, that a new pace is in store for us. And I really believe that if we, as a church, and as people who are part of the kingdom, buy into this, our lives are going to be way better. Slowing down for me is really, really hard. I like to go fast. I love meeting with people. I love being productive. I love building and organizing and growing. I like having my hands in a lot of things. And it's not just work stuff, by the way. I mean, I love quality time with my family. I love time with my wife. I love time with my friends. I love pastoring this church and preaching and leading and discipling people. I actually really enjoy being busy. Anybody else like that too? I really, really enjoy it. The idea of just stopping and settling down and doing nothing tends to be more of a nightmare than a dream for me. I love going from one thing to the next, meeting to meeting, and engagement to engagement. I love checking things off of a list, right? Like the adrenaline that comes with an accomplishment, the feeling that you've made a difference. I love that stuff, and I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that culture has really created some of that in us. I think that maybe God's wiring in us is associated with some of that. But if I'm honest, and as hard, like you're going to hear a lot of honesty from me today. As sad as it is for me to admit, it's hard for me to even remember a season of life, maybe a time in which I consistently lived life at a pace that I believe Jesus would think was acceptable. I mean, as I was thinking back, it was probably back in like 2005 where I think I had a pace. I just graduated college. I was kind of like starting in the corporate world. That was probably the last time that I felt like my pace was somewhat acceptable. And that's got to change, which is why I think, I know there's going to be at least one person in the room who's going to benefit from this series and this message, and it's going to be me. So today we're going to be in Luke chapter 10. We're going to just look at verse 38 to 42, and the title of my message is Distracted. Distracted. Today in the Gospel of Luke, we're going to read a little story. It's only about 5 verses long that is so relatable to what most of us experience on a daily basis. It blows my mind that we haven't evolved to a place where we're better at this since Jesus was talking about it 2,000 years ago. The story takes place in the last 6 months of Jesus' life. By now, Jesus is a regional icon. He's a hometown hero. He's one of the biggest celebrities in the area. And for these last 6 months of Jesus' life, he's going to spend his time primarily focused on teaching his followers about what it looks like to live within and operate within his kingdom, this new way. And really chapters 10 through 19 of the Gospel of Luke, it's kind of that final semester where Jesus is prepping his disciples, his followers, for his departure. And we're going to kind of get into just the very beginning of that kind of last season. Now, 3 of Jesus' closest followers were siblings. You had Mary and Martha, and then they had a brother named Lazarus. And all 3 of them seem to have made this decision to devote their life, like many of us have made, to following Jesus and living under the banner of his kingdom. And one day, as Jesus is traveling around in his final 6 months, he rolls into their village. We don't know if it was accidental for him to have dinner with them that night. We don't know if Martha saw him walking around and was like, hey, let's have a meal. But nonetheless, we find ourselves with Jesus rolling into their village. Martha sees him, invites him in, and Jesus and his disciples come to her house for dinner. And we're going to pick it up in Luke chapter 10. Many of you have heard this before, but we're going to just kind of dive right into it. Starting in verse 38. Will you look at it with me? It says, now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village. The village is Bethany, actually. And a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. That word welcomed, it means to embrace, to entertain as a guest. In the original language, its emphasis is on how happy that Mary and Martha are to have Jesus in their home. They love him. They believe in him. They're honored that he would come. So that's what that word welcomed him into their house means. And she had a sister, this woman Martha, named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. Now, one thing to note real quick is in first century Jewish culture, rabbis didn't allow women to sit at their feet and learn. A woman could learn in the back or in the women's section, but to be at the rabbi's feet, to be at Jesus' feet was unheard of, and it was culturally very awkward. I could promise you, everyone there noticed. It wasn't like there was this huge crowd and like everyone noticed, oh, there's a woman standing or sitting right at Jesus' feet while he's teaching. I want you to imagine something like I'm up here and I'm teaching right now, and how awkward it would be if like one of the security guards that was supposed to be on post just decided to just roll in, like kind of like move my seat and just was like, just took a seat and was just sitting here and just watching me. Like everybody in the room would be, that's a little weird, right? That's not necessarily his role. That's not necessarily his place. We would agree, right? We'd agree. And everyone would notice. There wouldn't be a person in a room that's like, that's normal, right? Not a person. And you have to understand, I know it's so hard for us to actually put ourselves into the first century, but that's what's happened, okay? Now, it says this in verse 40. But Martha, notice the next word, was distracted. Now, that word has an aggressive undertone in the original language. It means she was being pulled away, dragged away. we think of distracted as kind of like, oh, like a butterfly. This word, again, my job is to help you like really understand the text. It means to be dragged away. It's kind of this aggressive undertone in the original language. What was she distracted with? Look at what's next. She was distracted with much serving. That word serving can be translated and is usually translated to ministry. So it wasn't like she was doing bad things. She was doing good things, something honorable. And while Jesus is teaching, it says that she, Martha, went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? I love the sibling war. It's such a real thing. Again, understanding the original language helps us understand really what's going on here. The undertone is that Martha feels neglected. Has left me means to feel forsaken, to feel neglected by her sister. And then she tells Jesus what to do. I love this. Martha's a savage. And she looks at Jesus and she says, tell her to get up and help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha. Sounds like the Brady Bunch. Right? Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. But one thing is necessary. Notice the contrast. Many things, one thing. Mary has chosen the good portion, or the most excellent plate is another way to understand what is being stated here by Jesus, which will not be taken away from her. Mary has chosen the good portion, or the most excellent portion, which will not be taken away from her. Studying this messed me up. Reading the Bible can be fun at times, but having the Bible read you is really never awesome, is it? And this really hit home for me. Now, I don't think it comes to a surprise for anybody in the room that I am a person who tends to be easily distracted. I was diagnosed ADHD when I was about 7 years old, and one of the things that they tried to do was help me learn and grow by creating environments for me as a kid where distractions were limited, and to help me stay focused on like accomplishing goals. I've been on medication for my ADHD. When I graduated college in 2004 and got into corporate America, I quickly learned that I had to adapt. In order to be successful, I had to really work hard to try to create environments for myself where I could be successful, because if I did not have appropriate environments for myself to not be distracted, it was not going to go well for me. And I did fairly well. I had a sales job. I had clear goals. I left the house and worked a 9-to-5 job for the most part. I had a private working space. I made sure I left my laptop at home, and I had a little nook for me to work. I traveled, so I had a lot of non-distracted time in the car that helped me think clearly. I remember when everybody was carrying around a BlackBerry. This is back in the early 2000s. I chose not to get one. I kept my Nextel flip phone that also had the walkie-talkie. You remember those? I'm showing my age right now. And I would actually not, I wouldn't even really use the walkie-talkie all that much, but it was the thing that my company would pay for, was that or a BlackBerry, so I went with that because I didn't want, the idea of doing emails constantly, I knew that would be a distracting thing, and it felt wrong. The work life and the home life was pretty clear. When I was home. I remember the peace that associated with walking into my house. And when I was at work, I was at work. And for the most part, I had learned to live with minimal distractions. But then 2007 hit. I'm convinced that in 100 years, when history is being written outside of the life of Jesus, 2007 will be seen as one of the greatest turning points in human history. Why? It's exactly when Steve Jobs decided to place the iPhone in our hands. And what the smartphone did was it gave us access, instant access to everything we could have ever imagined having. Everything. People, information, pictures, news updates, opportunity to share my opinion whenever I wanted, wherever I wanted to, whoever I wanted to. And for the past 15 years, the entire human population has basically become connected to a digital world where experts build algorithms intentionally designed to grab my attention and addict me to their platform. I want you to think about that. What I just said is true. Experts build algorithms intentionally designed to grab my attention, who I already struggle with in attention disorder, right? And then addict me to their platform. Think about that. So addiction is the relentless pull to a substance or activity that becomes so compulsive it interferes with our everyday life. I'll read that again. Addiction is the relentless pull to a substance or activity that becomes so compulsive it interferes with our everyday life. By that definition, nearly every person in this room is addicted to some sort of digital platform. You are. Instagram, TikTok, Be Real, Snapchat. You're like, I don't do the social media things. Reddit, podcast, ESPN, YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, news outlets, the porn epidemic. And we're not even talking about texting or email or scrolling some sort of rabbit trail where you started at 9:30 at night when you got into bed, and next thing you know, it's almost time to wake up and I got to get some sleep. Am I wrong? You name your digital addiction, and the craziest thing is that you're not there by accident. Someone, somewhere, intentionally designed something to aid in your addiction. And the problem is it is an addiction. That's the problem. Meaning that even if you sit here and admit, if you have the courage to even sit there and be like, yeah, I got a problem. And one of the ways you know you got a problem is when your phone isn't on you, but you still feel the phantom vibrate in your leg. No, just me. You're like, did my thigh just vibrate? And the problem with an addiction is that even if we admit we have it, our willpower is irrelevant against it. And in order to break it, you have to do some drastic things. This is so sad for me to admit, but I promised you I'd be honest today. I'll lie next week. This was so sad for me to admit. History is evidence. History would say that unless I put a screen time limit on ESPN.com and Instagram, I cannot use those platforms in a non-addictive way. It is like crack to me. I don't know why, but the algorithm knows. I'm either too weak or the algorithm is too strong. Either way, it's like crack. So I have a password on my phone that only Beth knows. And once I hit 45 minutes on Instagram or ESPN.com, that thing just shuts off. And then I'm like a little kid, like, man, can I please get some more time? It's so embarrassing. If you study the brilliance behind the digital world, it will terrify you. Almost every single app on your phone has been intentionally engineered to steal your attention through target marketing, remarketing, my feed pages, right? You're like, why am I interested in that and that? I'm so interested. Every story I love, right? It's the weirdest thing. Perfectly timed notifications, cart reminders, The dopamine hits that come when you get a like, a share, a DM, a comment. The tech world understands that if they can keep your attention and distract you from all the other noise, they will eventually get your money. And they know biblically that if they get you your money, they got your heart. And if for some reason they can't take your money, they'll just sell your algorithm to someone willing to pay for it so that they could take you through the same process, hoping to be more successful than the person that they bought it from. And if that's not scary enough, the science on how it's affecting our attentiveness is terrifying. Before the digital revolution, right, TVs and computers had already begun to ruin our attention spans. Stats said that by the year 2000, the average person's attention span had dropped down to 12 seconds. Right? Morris is laughing about that. I'm surprised he heard it because he's on his phone. My guy. Today, we're 15 years into the smartphone, and we're down to an attention span, listen to this, to 8 seconds. 8 seconds. What's so funny to me about that is there's always the running joke of the goldfish who goes around and is like, oh, where am I? And they're in that little bowl. A goldfish attention span is 9 seconds long. We are losing to a goldfish right now. Attentiveness is so bad right now that studies are showing that psychologists, psychiatrists, and neurologists are struggling to diagnose ADHD, which is considered to be a neurological disorder because the symptoms of ADHD today look almost identical to what your average person experiences from being addicted to the technology that they carry around in their pockets every day. I read that this week and I was like, this is so scary. Now, as followers of Jesus, we believe that Jesus has a better way for us. And I think the text from today has a lot to offer. Now, we're going to be talking about this per se for 4 weeks. So I'm going to do my best to give you everything I got in my notes. But I only have 10 minutes left. God bless you. See the distraction? Jeez. So I'm going to give you just really three points that I think are helpful from this text that come right from the verses that I just want us to look at. The first is this. We have to kill the things that are pulling us away from Jesus. We have to kill them. I mean, and I say the word kill, I mean it. This is like a human. Don't do that. You're like, yes, my kids are just pulling my... No, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Look at verse 40. But Martha was distracted. That word distracted, again, aggressively being pulled away. Dragged away. What I'm trying to communicate is we need to be as aggressive as the things that are distracting us. Actually, we need to be more aggressive than the things that are already being aggressive with us. Okay? John Ortberg says the great danger for the church is not that we're going to renounce our faith. It's that we're going to be so distracted and so rushed and so preoccupied that we settle for a mediocre version of our faith where we spend our lives skimming instead of living. That is so true for me. I can't do anything without just skimming. It's so hard for me just to sit down and read nowadays without just and not actually reading. So what pulls us away from Jesus? What pulls us away? A professor from the Charleston Southern University School of Business put together a survey, it's a Christian school, a survey of over 20,000 Christians across the globe called Obstacles to Growth. And what he found from his survey was that across the board, the consensus is that, quote, busyness is the primary thing that distracts people from their genuine pursuit of Jesus. Busyness. Just think about how diverse of a problem busyness is. Every ethnicity, every gender, every stage of life, every social class. How you doing? Good. Busy? Good. How is it possible that everyone is busy? Isn't it true that if everyone's busy, there should be some who they're busy for and aren't doing some things? High school students say they're busy, and they are. I have them. College students say they're busy, and they are. Young parents, busy. Empty nesters, busy. CEOs and baristas, busy. Stay-at-home moms, busy. Working moms, busy. Everyone is busy. I heard a quote, if the devil can't make you evil, he'll just make you busy. If busyness cuts off your connection to God and to other people and removes the necessary attentiveness of your soul, then busyness is sin. Think about that next time you say, I'm busy. It's sin. Think about that. Next time you say, I'm busy. But yet it's celebrated. It's the sin that's celebrated, right? Like nobody will walk around and be like, hey, how you doing? Totally watched porn for 45 minutes today. Loved it. Awesome. Doing great. No, we don't want to own our sin like that, right? But we'll celebrate busyness. So we have to identify what it is that keeps us busy, hurried, distracted. And we got to be as aggressive against it as it is with us. Look at the text again. It says, while Jesus was teaching, Martha went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve? Again, the original language, right? Like the undertone is she's very frustrated and she feels very neglected. And then she says, tell her to help me. Okay, if you picture this scene, it's wild. When it says Martha went up to him, it's a picture, right, of some sort of explosive act where Martha bursts into the room, right, interrupts Jesus as he's teaching. Could you imagine interrupting Jesus while he's teaching? She's like, Lord, hold up. Jesus in there, he's talking to his disciples. Martha just started, Lord, hey, hold up. I'm sure whatever you're talking about is super important right now, but I got a problem. While you're in here and you're talking about how you created everything and hold all things together through the palms of your hand, right? And how you got authority over all things and, and life and death and how much you love everybody. I got fish soup that's getting cold and I got some bread that's being burned, okay? And all the while, look at Mary. She just sitting here like a security guard at Netcast and she needs to get her butt up and to help me. So Jesus, right, has to stop his teaching. He stops his teaching and he says to Martha, Martha, Martha. Now that is actually a very tender way of communicating. Martha, Martha. It's about to be a rebuke, but at least it's sympathetic. He says, you are anxious or unnecessarily worried and troubled or bothered and irritated about many things. You're all messed up about so many things, but really only one thing is necessary. You see, Martha had this inward anxiety and this outward agitation because she was so focused on too many things and not focused on the one thing that actually mattered. Jesus is like, Martha, you got too many goals. You got too many non-negotiables. Mary's chosen the one thing. You got 30 things, and you think that you need those 30 things to be happy. And because you're trying to do too much and we're unwilling to let you suck us into your mess, now you're frustrated with us and you're annoyed and irritated at Mary. This is ultimately what Jesus is communicating to her. And this is exactly what happens when we don't properly prioritize what Jesus calls the good portion. Here's some symptoms that you're not focused on the one thing that's necessary. You ready? You're irritable. Little common things, normal things bug you. Impatient with people that don't move at your pace. You get mad at your spouse or your kids if they aren't helping create the life and the order that you think is necessary. You find yourself frustrated or annoyed when people are relaxing while you're running around getting things done in a hurry. You're irritable. You're sensitive. A minor comment, a misinterpreted text leads you to quickly emotionally escalate. You have a hard time rolling with the punches. You don't believe the best about people. You assume the worst about others. You don't ask clarifying questions to best understand what others are really thinking. You're just sensitive, and so you jump to your conclusions. You're restless. When you actually do try to slow down or rest, you can't relax. You feel a sense of guilt when you're not doing something. You rely on your phone or your TV to settle down before bed, but you don't sleep well. You can't pray or sit in silence without feeling a pressure to actually do something. Prayer actually feels silly to you because why pray when you could do? You never slow down. You don't know when to stop. It could be workaholism. It could be chasing accomplishments or rewards. It's obsessing over house cleaning or always running around doing errands because you don't stop to organize what you need to do before you head out to do it, right? Because stopping isn't a part of it. I'm going to try to do it all on the way. How many of you have taken like 4 trips to the grocery store in 2 days? Thank you for being honest with me. Everybody else is a freaking liar. Home Depot's a great one. Thank you. That is so true. Or you feel the need to be at every party, every work event, every kid's game. I love my kids. I love their games. I have 4 of them. That's conflicting. And then by the end of the day, since you never slow down, you literally have no emotional or physical capacity to give the ones you love the most. And the thought of being needed by your spouse is infuriating. How about this? You're emotionally cold. I'm not talking about personality traits where your natural propensity is to be less emotionally engaged. I'm talking about those who can remember a day where you were sympathetic and understanding and compassionate, but somewhere along the way, you realize that you just don't have that time anymore because feeling takes time. You're reactive. Most of your time is spent reacting to the demands that others put on you. You're not proactive with your time. You find yourself getting sucked into projects or errands that you never anticipated doing. But you can't say no to requests from your friends or your coworkers or your kids because everything seems to be a priority because you haven't really paused long enough to identify what priorities are. You feel gross. You almost never get 8 hours of sleep. You don't have any exercise routine. You don't plan to eat, so you live off of caffeine, sugar, processed carbs. You're overweight, always tired, get sick multiple times a year. You rely on socially acceptable addictions to escape from reality, knowing it distracts you from God and people and leaves you feeling gross. As you scroll your phone, surf the internet, watch TV, overdrink, overeat, undersleep. For some of you, your phone is your best friend. You spend more time communicating with a device than you do a human. You never leave home without it. You never shut it off. You truly believe that your kids will die if you don't have your phone on you. It houses the good and the bad, your porn addiction, your Bible reading, your work, your friendships. It's your to-do list. When you're alone, you sense in your soul this friend of yours immediately pulling you towards it because it's your best friend. And if it's not on you, you have that vibration in your pocket as a simple reminder, I will never leave you nor forsake you. If you can relate to this, it's a sign that Jesus might be saying to you, take out the Martha, Martha, and put your name, Matt, Matt. You're anxious and you're troubled about many things, but one thing's necessary. Third thing I want us to see comes out of verse 40. It says, Martha went up to him, Jesus, and says, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Now, if you don't look close, you're going to miss it. And I'll close with this. There are 5 words in there that indicate something unique, and the 5 words are this: my sister has left me. We can learn something from Mary. My sister has left me. Mary was distracted by Jesus, not away from Jesus. Do you see that? This is telling us that at some point in the night, Mary was actually with Martha, helping Martha. But Mary got distracted by the one good portion. She's in there trying to help her sister, getting food prepped, creating a hospital environment. But at some point in time, she just gets distracted. There's a tug, and she finds herself being pulled towards Jesus. So much so that she eventually finds herself in the front row at his feet, leaning in, completely ignoring the busy work, the 30 other things that Martha wants her to be doing. And then Jesus has to tell Martha, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, the most excellent portion, which will not be taken away from her. The original language actually says it like this, and I don't know why they don't translate it a little differently. It says, only a few things are necessary, really only one, is what Jesus says. The biblical picture here is actually a picture of a meal. And Jesus is saying that Mary has chosen the portion, the most excellent portion of the meal that was best. She was distracted by like the big piece of pie. She was distracted by what was best for her, the most nourishing meal that was available. She was distracted by what was good. When was the last time you were distracted by what was actually good? At Thanksgiving, our family does too much. Beth and I, we literally work all day long. She's the cook, I'm the assistant. By the end of the day, we literally, I think, have at least 15 different dishes. We got eggs, we start the morning out with an egg and sausage souffle and biscuits, and then we go all in, right? So for the rest of the day, we're cooking ham and fresh turkey and corn casserole, cheesy potatoes, 2 types of stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potato casserole, cauliflower casserole, green bean casserole. She's from the South. Deviled eggs, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie, apple pie, Brussels sprout salad. I'm sure I'm missing something, but you want to know what the best part of the meal is? When we sit down at the table and we're actually done eating, and I demand that there's no time frame, there's no schedule, and we talk about how thankful we are for what God has done this year. That's the good portion. And that could sometimes take 90 minutes to 2 hours, because cultivating gratitude and appreciation and celebrating loving relationships, it takes time. Hurry, listen to this. If you don't get anything out of this, get this. Hurry kills relationships because love takes time. If you try to schedule your relationships, you're treating them not like genuine relationships. You're treating them like work. People in a rush don't have time to enter the goodness of a loving relationship. Listen, all right, this might be a little provocative. I don't care, right? I don't care. Married couples, real quick. There was a time in which you and your spouse took time to love each other. Took time to love each other. Most people's intimate relationships in their marriages, if it's there, it's pretty rushed. Is that truly love? And the same is true with our intimacy with Jesus. If we put even an end time on that, I know it sounds crazy to think, but when you watch Jesus operate, and you watch the disciples, do you think a disciple is ever like, all right, Jesus, time's up? Could you imagine? If you put a time limit on everything, you will miss the beauty and joy and gratitude and appreciation of loving relationships, specifically with Jesus. And what Jesus is affirming in Mary is that the best dish on the table, the good portion, is fellowship with him, intimacy with him, sitting at his feet, learning from him. Mary chose it, Martha missed it. And that's the big takeaway. Jesus is saying, the one thing that is needed, the one thing that is better than all the other things, and what Martha was doing was good. She was doing ministry. She was serving. The one thing that is better was sitting patiently at his feet and receiving from him. The highest priority for those of us who are part of this different kingdom has to be very deliberate and to choose. Notice the word. It says Mary chose. You have to choose. This doesn't just happen. You have to choose to eliminate distractions, reject busyness, and prioritize sitting at his feet. You're like, well, what does that look like? I'll just give you one example. Mary is not an example of doing a 10-minute Bible study or a little Devo in the morning. Mary is an example of sitting until it's over. But if you don't create margin in your life so that you can sit until it's over, this is not possible for you. So call it prayer. People are like, well, what is it? Is it prayer? Do I need to read my Bible? Call it all of it. Call it prayer. Bible study. The craziest thing about studying Scripture, those of you who don't know, this is my own personal example, experience, is that I actually really love to study the Scriptures and sit down with the Scriptures. In the first 10 minutes, I never get anything profound. It usually doesn't come till the minute 30. Once you get 30 minutes of contemplative thought, silence, it takes for me 15 minutes just to get the to-do list out of my head to actually even focus on anything that I'm reading. Right? So it just takes time. But society and algorithms are trying to rob you of it aggressively, and you got to get aggressive back. So in this new year, as we're starting it out, we need to begin to have some conversations around this. What are the things that you need to kill? What are the things that you need to kill? And not what are your priorities going to be, because the word priority, it means prior. What is the first and most important thing going to be for you? What's going to be your good portion? Is it going to be Jesus or not? I hope that it is. So that's where we're just going to land the plane. Okay? Let's pray together. Father, I thank you for your word. And I thank you for this new season that we're walking into. I pray that we would delight in you, that you would identify for us the distractions, the things that are making us busy, that are leading us to live a hurried life, and that we would violently, aggressively fight against them. Lead us into that, Jesus. That's what we desire. Oh, how beautiful it would be if in December of 2023, as we're walking into a new year, everybody in the room was able to evaluate and step back and look and say, wow, I have begun to live a life that is a lot less hurried and a lot less busy and a lot more fulfilling because we have selected the good portion. May that be true for us in Jesus' name. Amen.